Hey everybody, get a load of this guy.
I think AI will probably, most likely, sort of lead to the end of the world, but in the meantime, there will be great companies created with serious machine learning.
So the acronym AI apparently stands for artificial intelligence. What about absolute insanity? Or actually indifferent? You know, when I hear that kind of thing, it causes my anxiety index to shoot through the roof. What if the anxiety that we feel about AI is indeed entirely reasonable, but the way we're inclined to respond is not? I don't need to tell you, do I, that the rollout of AI is causing a lot of people to feel deeply uncomfortable. There's a there's a feeling that the future has been decided already by some enormous impersonal force who's reshaping the world with little or no regard for people currently breathing. The apprehension that we are feeling is deadly serious and we need to treat it that way. So let's do that right now. But let's ask if the way we are responding to AI is actually going to help. Millions of jobs are already being disrupted. Copywriters, coders, paralegals, radiologists, translators. Entire categories of work that used to require years of training are now being partially or fully automated. Entry level hiring is way down, and teams are being reduced, with the survivors required to increase their output using AI instead of collaborating with expert human colleagues. I met someone yesterday, a Swedish friend. He has long been a forensic investigator in the financial space, laid off at the age of 57. More subtle, and in some ways more disturbing, is the feeling that AI is making us less capable. That by outsourcing our thinking so completely, writing, making decisions, creating, that we're going to wake up one day unable to do these things for ourselves, cognitively weakened and intellectually dependent. And beyond the individual, there is the societal fear that decisions that shape our lives, like who gets a loan, who might get hired, which messages reach which voters, are increasingly being made by systems that nobody fully understands. Systems accountable to nobody that the people elected. Systems optimized for goals that we never agreed to. These are not irrational fears. This is deadly serious. Big tech is exceedingly bullish about AI. So I think we need to take that bull by the horns and train it to play nice. So here's a question I've been sitting with for a while. What kind of response is actually going to help us make a difference? Now let's see if we cannot learn a thing or two from the story of the Luddites. In the early 1800s, in the northern textile regions of the UK, that be Lancashire, Nottinghamshire, Yorkshire, a movement emerged which has given its name to everyone who ever pushed back against technology, the Luddites, led by their iconic leader, Ned Ludd. Now, many people think the Luddites simply did not understand progress. But I don't know. They were professional men and women. They were knitters and weavers using manually operated looms to do their work. And they knew very well what industrial, mechanized, automated looms were going to do to their livelihoods. They were very clear, I think, about the financial threat that they faced. But their response was to smash the machines. Secretly, at night, in coordinated raids, they smashed factory equipment all across the Midlands. And for a while, they were a serious threat to industrial order in the UK. In fact, at one point, the British government deployed more troops against the Luddites than they deployed against Napoleon in the Battle of Waterloo. But the Luddites' protests ended very badly. 3 of them were hanged by the neck. I remember reading that 3 of the Luddite leaders were hanged and 16 were exiled to Australia, which was a British penal colony at the time. And the machines just kept on coming. The factories were modernized and the craft traditions were lost anyway. But now, without compensation, without negotiation, without any of the protective structures which might have helped their transition out of the workforce or into other work. The tragedy of the Luddites is not that they resisted, but their form of resistance made them easy to criminalize, easy to dismiss, and ultimately it rendered them powerless. They had real grievances, just like we have today. They had legitimate concerns about economic fairness and human dignity, just like we have today. But their methods were purely destructive, bypassing all kinds of politics, like their policy was one of destructive non-participation. Well, the machines won, and the workers lost twice. They lost their jobs, and they lost their leverage. Now, imagine that those skilled workers had organized differently. What if, instead of night raids, they had formed powerful guilds that negotiated with factory workers? What if they had lobbied Parliament for transition support, retraining funds, profit-sharing arrangements? What if they had said publicly and loudly that they will not stand in the way of progress, but that progress will not be built on our suffering? Well, we can't know how that might have panned out, but we do know that later labour movements that took exactly that approach, well, they won the 8-hour day, the 40-hour week. They won workplace safety laws. They won the right to organise. They changed capitalism from the inside. They did not prevent new technology being deployed, but they did get a say in how, where, and when it was deployed. So the lesson here is not that resistance is futile. The lesson is that constructive engagement is far more effective than sabotage or a simple abstention. Back to the present. The genuinely hopeful thing about where we are right now with AI is that the window is still open. The norms around AI are being written today. Governments are legislating, courts are deciding, and corporations are still sensitive to public pressure and reputational risk. The question of how AI gets deployed in hiring, healthcare, criminal justice, in media, none of that is settled. Public opinion still shapes it. But that influence evaporates quickly if the dominant public response is panic or passive resignation. What we'd better do is engage and push, demand accountability, support good regulation, and bring informed pressure to bear on the people making decisions. The EU is all over this. Look here, the EU's AI Act enacted March 24. It's the first ever comprehensive legal framework on AI worldwide. It aims to foster trustworthy AI in Europe. Well, I'm a European from Scotland. Britain used to be a member of the European Union, remember? Well, so much regulation comes out of the EU that we used to have a joke about bananas. To be legally imported to the EU, bananas needed to have a minimum curvature. So crazy was much of the regulation from the EU at the time. But now, regulation on AI, hell yeah, bring it on. Bring it by the truckload. You don't have to love AI to participate in shaping it, but you do have to show up. I am not asking you to feel optimistic about AI. Optimism is not a prerequisite for wisdom. What I am asking is this. Don't let your fear express itself as paralysis or purely as protest, and learn enough to be credible in the conversation. There's no point in making a lot of noise if you don't really know what you're talking about. Support the people and organizations pushing for transparency and accountability. And think carefully about how you use AI in your own life. Not to avoid it completely, but use it in ways that keep your thinking sharp and help to keep your judgment intact. For example, ask your favorite chatbot a theoretical question, and then keep on questioning its responses until it either digs a hole for itself or until you feel good about what you're learning. For just such an exercise, I asked ChatGPT what would be the best way to govern a population of 100 million people. It gave me a 10-point plan and a summary, at least 50 statements that I could turn into questions and require it to explain its reasoning. By the time that conversation was over, I'd had a multitude of new thoughts and I'd asked dozens of questions. And I felt like I was in control of the information processing going on in my own mind. I claimed agency over that chatbot. I'm doing the work here, buddy, not you. And that feeling of having agency works to minimize, if not completely eradicate, anxiety. The Luddites were not wrong to feel what they felt, but they certainly were mistaken to believe that resistance rising to vandalism would change anything in a positive way. Right now, we have the chance to do much better. The mechanized weaving looms of artificial intelligence are coming, regardless. The question is, who designs the social fabric that they will weave? That could be robots with nothing more than a profit motive, or it could be real blood and guts human beings, intelligently engaged in their own future prospects. Look, the worst of the worst do indeed seem to be pushing for corporate ownership of absolutely everything. Don't let them own your mind. My name is Craig Dunn, and this is the topic of a consequential conversation on connexsense.com. You can connect with me directly over there, call the support guy, or go to the Consequential Conversations page and send me a private video message. Meanwhile, enjoy the rest of your day.